It is great to see all of you here today. My name is Steve Sherrill. I'm the pastor here at PCC. And how many of you guys were here last Sunday and had a chance to hear the message that Pastor Mike brought? Yeah, man, that was some good stuff. Listen, if you didn't hear it, just so you know, I've kind of been chewing on that sermon all week. And if you didn't hear it, if you weren't here last week, do yourself a favor. Head over to paylesscommunity.church on our website and watch Pastor Mike's message from last week. This week, we're going to be continuing in our own The Vision series. We've been doing this throughout the month of January. Now we're into February, I know, but we're talking about our mission and our vision and our values as Payless Community Church. And so the 4 weeks in January, we focused on our 4 core values here at PCC. And those that we talked about were that we're going to love irrationally, that we're going to serve selflessly, we're going to give generously, and grow continuously. And so today what we're going to focus on is our mission as a church. And here's our mission as Payless Community Church. We are called to live like Christ and love like Christ so others can know Christ. To live like Christ and to love like Christ so others can know Christ. That is why we exist. That's why Payless Community Church is here. See, we're not called to merely know the good news of the gospel ourselves. We're actually called to be the good news, to live it each and every day. The thought of living like Christ and loving like Christ needs to consume us as individuals, but it needs to consume us as a church, what we're about. And so we're focusing on our mission and vision and values. And we're not focusing on this because we want to grow to be this huge church and we'll be able to look around and go, oh, look what we've done. Yeah, we did such a great job growing our church. That's not why we're doing this, right? We're not focusing on mission and values so that we can pat ourselves on the back and talk about what we have accomplished. What we're doing when we're focusing on mission and vision and values is that we're focusing on something other than ourselves, right? This isn't supposed to make us feel good. We should be consumed with the mission of Payless Community Church, with the vision and with the values of our church, because there are people who don't know Jesus. There's people who don't know him yet, and that's why we need to be focused and consumed with what these things are for us. A week ago, I had the opportunity to be at the ECO National Gathering. And for those of you who may be kind of new around here, ECO stands for the Evangelical Covenant Order, and it's the part of the Presbyterian Church that we are affiliated with. And the first session that I went to at this national conference for our denomination, it was about building and maintaining healthy congregations. It was led by a guy named Dr. Paul Borden, who is a church revitalization expert. He's helped hundreds of churches that were sort of heading in the wrong direction, meaning that they were shrinking, that they were getting smaller and smaller. They weren't impacting their community. They were seeing nobody coming into their church that didn't know Jesus, learn about Jesus. And he's helped hundreds of these churches. And so I went to this seminar put on by Dr. Paul Borden, and I had to kind of laugh when he started talking, because what he was doing was talking about how all healthy churches must focus on their mission, vision, and values. He actually said that when a church has a mission to follow, it gives hope, and hope gives life. And he went on to say that without hope, the church will die. And I found it kind of humorous, and I was energized by it at the same time, because his whole presentation about focusing on the mission, vision, and values that God has given you as a church, this is what the leadership here at Payless Community Church has been spending an awful lot of time on. There was a good portion of last year where every single one of our leadership meetings, our elders, we talked about where is God uniquely calling us. We've been praying about what is that mission and vision and value set that God has placed for us right here, Payless Community Church, that is uniquely ours to accomplish the goals of his kingdom. We've been spending a lot of time with our staff and with our leadership on mission, vision, and values, and that's exactly what he was talking about was so important for healthy churches. One of the quotes that he actually put up on a slide was this. It said, God created the church primarily to accomplish the mission of making disciples. Let me say that again. God created the church primarily to accomplish the mission of making disciples. See, we were given a commission by Jesus to go. So what Pastor Mike talked about last week with us, and that the powerful message that he shared, he said that we're commanded to go. And Mike said last week, we're commanded to go because the world needs us to be where they are. So Matthew chapter 28, 19 through 20, probably a familiar verse to many of you if you've been in the church for any length of time. It says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. See, Jesus said, therefore, go. And when he said go, Jesus was not making a request. He was not making a suggestion to us. He wasn't pleading with us. This is a command from Jesus to go. And so if we don't do this, if we don't go, if we don't follow Jesus' last words on earth before he ascended into heaven, we're disobeying him. So think of this idea of going as our job description, right? It's a job description for us, the church. Jesus told us to go and make disciples. Now, the term disciples means students or followers of Jesus. And so go and make students. Go and make followers of Jesus. See, in our world today, we will never make followers of Jesus unless we, the church, live and love like Christ did. And so this is the first fill in the blank for you guys that are fill in the blank kind of people. The first one for you this morning is that we are called to live like Christ. It's the first part of our church mission statement. Live like Christ. Now I'm gonna break the mold a little bit here from what we normally do. I'm gonna ask Jill. Jill, if you'll come up here for a second. I'm gonna have Jill write some things on this whiteboard, and I need you to give some feedback, or she's gonna stand there really bored. Okay? So how do we do this? Right? How do we live like Jesus? How do we live like Christ? So let's look at how Christ lived. If our mission statement says live like Christ, we got to know how Christ lived. So give me some like one word or two word kind of things that will help us understand, describe how did Christ live? Somebody, how did Christ live? He forgives us. What else? Served us. Someone else said something other than that. Believe. Janet? Healed. Forgive. I don't want to miss them. Forgive, served. Now we got healed. I don't know why I can't hear what you're saying. Holy. He was holy. Jesus lived holy. Yes. Compassionate. Oh, lived in community. Lived in community, sure. Lived simply. Yeah, that's a good one. He wasn't consumed by stuff like some of us get sometimes, was he? Simply. Loved. We going too fast, Jill? Simply. Loved. Selfless. Man. Now, I know that not all of you back there, like if you have eyes like mine, you wouldn't be able to see that, but we'll talk about them later. Okay, Jill, that's good for now. We could probably keep going. If I stand up here and let you keep shouting things out, you can talk about the way that Jesus lived. But just looking at this list, forgiving, serving, healing, he was holy, he was compassionate, lived in community, lived simply, selfless, all of these things that are up there. Those are easy to say, aren't they? Those are words that they can come off of our tongue pretty easy, but in real life, if we're honest, executing those in our life, actually living like that, is a lot more difficult. That's why we're here, though, right? That's why we come to church. That's why we join small groups. Our church is investing in small groups because what we're doing is we're trying to give people opportunities to learn how to make living like Christ a priority in their lives. Right? In small groups, we sort of give each other permission to hold us accountable to the way that we're living. You know, I've had the pleasure this last year of being a part of Tony Parrish's small group of men, and it's called Fight Club. And the name says it all, right? This is a group of men who desire to kind of fight for their faith, to fight for their integrity in the workplace, to fight for a good marriage, to fight for their kids as they're raising them. You know, it's like fight for, I am not going to give in to the ways of this world. I'm not going to let the world control me. So we call it Fight Club. And this is a group of men who are willingly submitting to the gospel message. And they want to do whatever they have to do to kind of protect their heart and their families from the lies of the world. But see, more than that, these men desire to live and love like Christ. And they want to do it so that others can know Jesus. I've been inspired by this group and their genuine care and concern for each other. I mean, over the last few days, one of the members of the group shot a prayer request out for a family member of theirs. And hey, here's what's going on. And like, as much as I just absolutely love group texts, there's all these people chiming in. Like, I'm praying, I got you, brother, lifting them up in the name of, like, it's amazing to be a part of a community like that. See, they're committed to their faith and trying to keep it at the forefront of their lives. A few weeks ago, when we had a big snow on that Friday night and Saturday morning, I sent a text out to the group and said, hey guys, anybody that can show up at church at 2 o'clock, it was a Saturday afternoon, anyone who can show up at church at 2 and help us shovel out, help us dig out the building, I'll be there. And so all these guys showed up, and they didn't just show up in force, but they came ready to serve, right? They greeted each other with high fives and hugs when they pulled up with their shovels. And as we're sitting there shoveling this really annoying, heavy snow, they're just laughing and having a great time with each other. And when I thanked them when we were finished, when I thanked them for coming and helping out on a cold and a snowy day, one after another said, hey, it was no problem. I was happy to do it. I mean, I shoveled out my driveway. I was over at my neighbor's, and I saw your text, and I thought, hey, what's one more place to shovel? These men love doing life together. They love being together. They love the friendships that they're forming. And they love the sense of mission that they have. And I think it's fair to say that they love the fact that they don't have to do life and navigate faith alone. See, we're called to live like Christ, but none of us can do that well alone. None of us in our own strength can live and forgive everybody who wrongs us. None of us in our own strength can serve everybody who needs served. We can't heal people. We can't be as compassionate as we need to be. We can't be selfless the way that we're called to be. We can't do that alone. But God gave us another command, and that can be found in Matthew 22. It's commonly known as the greatest commandment. And when asked what the greatest command was, Jesus, he doesn't actually go back and say, well, let me open up our Old Covenant scriptures, our Old Testament, let me read through the Jewish law, and we'll tell you what the most important thing to follow is. Rather, when he was asked that question, he sums it up this way. He said in Matthew 22, verse 37, it says, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And so our second fill in the blank today is that we're called to love like Christ. Right? We're supposed to live like Christ and love like Christ. This is the first part of our mission statement. In this passage, this is the passage, this is where we see, and this is why we have one of our values that says we will love irrationally. This is one of the passages that this idea of loving people irrationally comes from. We're commanded to love God and love others. But we can't love others if we're not consumed with living for Christ. If we're not consumed, you say, living like Christ, then loving others the way we're called to love is going to be pretty hard. I hope you see where we're going with this. See, for too long, and I'm going to say for too long in this church, but I'm going to say for too long in the American Christian church, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have merely come to church and tried to be good people throughout their life. They've tried to raise their children, right? I want to raise my children to be good people when they grow up. Now, don't misunderstand me. This is not a bad thing that people would like to be a good person, and it's not a bad thing they want to raise their kids to be good people. But that's not all that we're called to do. We're commanded to go, to love God, to love people, and to make disciples. To live like Christ, to love like Christ, so others can know Christ. See, in the same way that we can't live like Christ in our own strength, we can't love like Christ in our own strength. Each day, Christ has to be the first thing that we think about. He has to be the priority, the first one that we talk to when we wake up in the morning, the first one that we go to when we have questions about what's going on in this world. I'm going to have Jill come back up here and write down some of the ways. We talked about how Christ lives. How does Christ love? How does Christ love? How does he show his love for us? Somebody. Accepting us. Even in our sin. Yeah, accepting us. What else? How did he show our love for us? Anthony. Sacrifice. He died for us. Died for us. What else? How did he show his love for us? Forgiveness. Yep, forgives us. He taught us. He taught us, spent time with us. We'll end on this one. He rose from the dead for us. He accepted us in our sin. He lived a life of sacrifice for us, and then he died on the cross. That was the final sacrifice that he made so that he could forgive us. He spent time with us. He rose from the dead for us. Thank you, Jill. Now, you could look at this list that we've come up with when we've talked about how to live like Christ and how to love like Christ, and you could say, that's great and all, Steve, but there's some things on there I can't do. I can't die for the sins of humankind. I certainly can't make myself rise again. But you know what? There is something that all of these things have in common. And that's that Jesus saw a need and he met it. And we can do the same. See, to love like Christ is to give of yourself, not live for yourself. For us to love like Christ, all it means is that we give of ourselves instead of living for ourselves. And this leads to the next fill in the blank, and it's that we do this, we live like Christ and love like Christ so others can know Christ. That's why we do it. It's so that others can know Christ. If we go with the purpose of making disciples, then that means others are knowing Christ. Think about your social circle for a minute, if you will. Do you have any people in your life that you know who don't know who Jesus is? Maybe you're sitting there right now and you can see the picture in your mind. You can see the face of a person that's in your life that doesn't know Christ. But you don't really know how in the world to begin telling them about him. And so I'm going to give you the secret this morning. I'm going to give you the secret to evangelism right now, okay? Now, are you ready for this? This is big time secret. You might think I'm joking. I'm not really joking. This is the secret to evangelism. The secret to reaching somebody with the gospel message of Jesus Christ is to start by loving them. Start by loving them. Seriously, love like Christ. Find a need that they have and meet it. Maybe it's a single mom or a single dad offer to watch their kids for free so they can go out with a friend and have an adult conversation. Maybe it's a coworker who's struggling. You know that there's something going on either at work or at home, or there's a broken relationship in their life they're struggling with. Invite them out. Invite them to come over and spend time with you. Maybe invite their whole family over to spend time with your family. Every one of you that had a person, you had a picture of a person in your mind when I said, think of somebody that's in your social circle that doesn't know Christ. Every single one of those people you pictured in your mind has a need. And where there's a need, there's an opportunity for you to love them by meeting that need. This is why we exist as a called people of God. This is why we exist as Palos Community Church, to live like Christ and to love like Christ so that others can know Christ. And we as a church are going to be consumed with this thought. Everything that we do will be about this. We'll run through all of the things that we engage in here and start filtering them through. Are we living like Christ? Are we loving people like Christ? And are we doing it in a way that other people can know Christ? That's why this is so important. You know, in that same seminar that I talked about a little bit earlier when I was at the conference a week ago, there was the speaker, Dr. Borden, who talked about how a healthy church always has the mission and vision and values in the driver's seat. That's the filter that everything you do as a church flows through. And he also said that an unhealthy church is a church that puts programs and church structure in the driver's seat. He explained that a healthy church focuses on why they exist, right? They allow the why we exist to lead the way. They don't allow the what we do to lead the way. They don't allow what we do and what we've done and what we'd like to drive the decisions. Instead, they allow the why we exist drive the decisions. Let me give you an example of this. We do something here that we refer to as VBS, which is Vacation Bible School. Right? We for an entire week invite kids from the community to come to this church. We have well over 100 kids that come to this church and have Vacation Bible School all week. And during Vacation Bible School, what do? We tell kids about Jesus. Now, we don't do VBS at this church because we love the recognition that we get. I don't see any plaques here from the Village of Palos Park saying, awesome job on VBS, right? We don't do it because of all the work that it requires of us. Let's face it, 70% of this church wants to sleep for 3 days when VBS is over, right? We don't do it because VBS is just something we've always done. We do it because we want kids and families in our community to know that there is a God who created them and a God who loves them. Our Vacation Bible School is a prime example of us living like Christ and loving like Christ so that others can know Christ. I'm hoping by now some of you can say that along with me. See, and I want our church to be filled with stories of how we do this, how we live like Christ, love like Christ, so that others can know Christ. I want us to be filled with stories of how we see that happening inside these walls and outside these walls in the community. I want us to know our mission and our vision and our values inside and out. I want each of us to be able to confidently say that our mission is to live like Christ and to love like Christ so that others can know Christ. See, if we know that, if we can repeat it, then we can call on it whenever we're tempted to ignore the command that God has given us. Because ignoring is not an option. Jesus commanded us to go. Would you pray with me?